Okay, it's 1 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get started so everybody has an opportunity to speak if they want to. I was going to go ahead and questions come up about how the meeting ended up being here instead of at the library. The new guidelines that went in with House Bill 1 that are related to KRS 132, and the actual statute is KRS 132-023, states that a special purpose governmental entity proposing to levy a tax rate which exceeds the compensating tax rate shall hold a public hearing to hear comments from the public, and you're here, regarding the proposed tax rate. The hearing shall be held in the same location where the governing body of the city or county where the largest number of citizens served by that special purpose government entity resides, where they meet, and shall be held immediately before a regularly scheduled meeting of that governing body, which is 2 o'clock today. So that's how, to answer the question of how we ended up here, and typically they've been at each individual taxing district. And I think when they did the new regulations on how taxing districts report to fiscal court and everything, they wanted to make it easier if other taxing districts had to hold a hearing. They're all at the same time, same place, and if you do have to take off work, you just have to take off work once. So, we're going to give you a little bit of general information, and then from there, it's your public hearing and your opportunity to talk. So, we'll be following along with what you guys say.
All right, I'm John Lentz. I'm the chairman of the board. Melissa Smathers, she's the director of the library. Donna Howell, she's another board member. And Heather Dittenbach is the regional representative of the Kentucky Department of Libraries and Archives. All right, just to mention who we are. Each year, the Montgomery County Library Board is provided with the choice of 2 tax rates, which are calculated by the Kentucky Department of Library and Archives. The library board may select the compensating rate without conducting any public hearing. If the library board chooses to adopt the provided rate, which is calculated to be up to 4% over the compensating rate, a public hearing is required. We're here. It's been 5 years since the Montgomery County Library Board has adopted a rate over the compensating rate, and that was for 2010-2011. In fact, the rate for 2013-2014 was held at the same rate for the previous year, making the rate actually less than the compensating rate for that year. We have information available to anyone that wants it. We got handouts. We got the tax rates for the past several years. We've got the tax rate comparisons between our libraries and other libraries in our area. We've got the cost difference for an average taxpayer and what being considered an average taxpayer is up to discretionary, I guess, but we consider that the person that's got a $120,000 house. And we figured out what the difference between the compensating rate and the +4. We've got a handout for that. And then we've got statistics of usage of the library for 2014, 2015, and what the cost would be to individuals if they were to purchase the items that went through the library. This is an opportunity for the public to speak. Fiscal court will be meeting at 2, so we've got 55 minutes. Please be courteous and allow enough time for anyone that's wishing to speak to be able to speak. And we'd like to open the floor now for the public comment. Go ahead.
Just I guess I should turn. You guys are all better next. The one question I had was, so that we're really understanding your rate. You say your rate did not increase in 2013 and 2014. According to compensating, it did not increase, but it actually increased because of the loophole that's being currently used. The amount of money collected per dollar or per $100 is higher this past year than last year. Am I correct?
The actual rate that was assessed was the same. It was 6% the previous year, and we maintained it at 6% for that year. That 6 cents per hundred.
Right.
That way. It did change. It did go up. We didn't take compensating. It stayed the same over those years. The rate itself.
Okay. Was your money collected higher year to year?
That's based on the property tax.
Well,
The rate did not change.
it's a venture to say that you brought in more cash in 13 and 14 than because property values went up, number one, and additional property was bought, purchased, and created. That was all the only question I had.
I got a question. Get this increase, why do you need this increase?
Okay, and I do have a list of that, and it was in the advertisement. The two things, big things that we're looking at is, until this year, most of the people that you work with at the circulation desk are minimum wage employees. As of July this year, the state went to $10 for employees. The library board raised the rate to $7.75. So those people still haven't made it to $8. There are some that's been there 10 or 12 years that are over $7.75. But the starting rate went to $7.75, so that's one thing, the pay for that. The other thing, we are in the process of building a new building. Our building is 8,600 square feet, and there's between 200 and 300 people every day in the building. On Mondays, there's more than that. And that's, between, we open at 8:30, close at 8, so that's a long time period to have them in there. So that's the other reason for now to be able to fund building the building, and then, once we get in the building, we should be able to lower the rate or take it back and not do any increases.
So
Can't
you're
guarantee
saying that
but
you will lower the rate?
I can't answer, the board has to answer that, and all the board members have to actually make that decision. But that is possible. In the past several years, they have lowered the rate.
So do you see any opportunity in the current operations they saved any money?
We save money every year. And that's how we've got a little over $1 million right now to put in the bank. And that's, going toward our new building. So we have saved some every year. So that's, once we go into a new building, we won't be in that saving mode. Once we get the building paid off.
Will the rates go down then?
Again, I can't answer for the library board, and the full board is not here to make that decision. But, that could be a possibility.
Do you know when the last time it was that you reduced our rates?
It was, the year that they actually, let me get some actual close to the correct years. The rate was reduced in 11-12 for, personal property, and then in 13-14, it was lowered from the compensating rate for real property and personal property both.
But the actual rate though, the compensating
Yeah,
rate.
that's the actual rate that was the question.
Okay, when was it lowered? Because I don't see it's been lowered any time after 2005, and I suspect before 2005 it was only reduced 1 or 2 times.
It would have been
The rate-
6.5 in 13-14, but instead of taking the 6.5 compensating, it was maintained 6%.
But it was not reduced. The rate was 6 cents per hundred in 12. In 11 it was 5.6. If we look back at 2005, it was 2.6 cents. Then you went to 2.9, then 3.2, then 3.6, then 4.2, then 4.9, then 5.6, then 6. Now you want to go to 7.
That's what the proposal
Is that
was
correct?
talked about, yes.
Thank you.
I realize that you are not at all responsible for the school system's rate, but how, if you know, does the library rate compare to the school system rate?
I don't know what the school system rate is, but it's, Jen, you don't know.
The school rate, it was 48.3 in 05. They are currently at 49. They've had less than 1 penny of an increase since 2005. Our fiscal court was 6.9 cents in 05, and they're at 7.3 today. They've actually had some decreases along the time. The state was at 13.10, they're at 12.2, and they've been at 12.2 since 08 because assessments have increased.
Okay, I've got a question regarding that. When I get my utility bills, I have a school tax on them.
Correct.
How many utility bills have a library tax?
Well, it's a different entity. The library tax, the library was
But your
actually
point
created
is,
without a
you
tax.
think you are being taxed too high a rate, if I understand all these meetings I've
Absolutely.
come to. My question is, why don't you go worry about the school tax, which takes so much more money than the library tax, and the library serves people of all ages and all incomes. I do not understand why you are so adamantly opposed to giving our county's residents the very best we can afford to give them, because it has been proven that library is very frugal in their expenditures. Well, that's your opinion.
That's opinion.
People who run for office always think they can cut money, and then they get in there and find out they can't. So let's pretend that they have cut everything they can.
Is this a question or a comment?
Well, it's both, I
Can I
guess.
address it like with the school?
But my
Well,
question is, why, if I just add up the taxes on utilities for the
Sorry.
school system, and I understand some people say, well, I never use the library, I don't want to pay this tax. I have not been blessed with children. I pay well over $100 a year.
What's the question?
Just in, my question is, why don't you go bother the school?
Well, first, when we
board
started this initiative several
instead
years
of
ago,
this?
in 2012, I believe it was, we decided we wanted to start with the library. The fire department, the ambulance, and extension district are also, they're actually in worse shape than the library. Meaning that they have escalated their rates at a higher rate. You know, our fire department or the ambulance has increased theirs 392%.
Well, then my question is, you want to hear my question?
We can't do them all at once.
My question is, if other facilities, in your opinion, are escalating their tax rates so much higher than the library, why are you singling out the library for these questions and not going to the main offenders?
The reason we started with the library is we found that they were sitting on more than $1 million cash in their reserve account. Taxpayers were totally unaware of that stash of funds.
It's not
Taxpayers were
considered a
also-
stash when you're saving it
It's a
for another
reserve.
person.
They're not instructed to save millions of dollars.
Let me
They're told by Frankfurt to save a 2 to 6 month rolling reserve. $1 million is far greater than a 2 month, 6 month rolling reserve.
Let me attempt here, because you're questioning Shannon, but that's okay. The reason why we came to the library was twofold. Number one is they have one of the larger increases year to year to year to year, okay? It wasn't clear that the reserve, what it was accounted for, and it really hasn't been very open about what they plan to do with it, okay? And number three, we are approaching each one of those other entities, and we're getting the same pushback. And what's bothering us most of all, in general, a lot of the special tax entities are not elected. They are appointed. And then the people that appoint them say they have no control over what they do.
Well, then that sounds like a problem for the state legislature to
Yes,
So it's
and
our
we-
problem.
and not fussing at the library board.
And if I can say, I want to kind of direct it back to the library, if I may, and I'll use your point about being frugal. The couple questions I have for the library is, I know that you went out and bought a property with a building on it in anticipation of making that your new library. And since that time, it's been determined that that building is going to be razed or demolished. And so my question on frugality is, it seems like a very, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was $150,000 that you paid. 140. You paid a lot of money for a landlocked piece of property with poor access to it. And the whole anticipation that was talked about for a year and a half was, if we buy that property, it's much cheaper than building a brand new building from scratch, because it's so much more expensive to do. And here we find ourselves having purchased a building, we're now demolishing it, and now we're going to do that more expensive motion. So my question is, what was done before it was decided to purchase? What entity reviewed the proper standing of the building to say it was in good favor, and then how did it suddenly become completely useless in less than a year?
Okay, and I'll address that, okay, John? Go ahead.
Sure.
The property that we bought is a little over 4 acres. When they first started looking for a place to put a library, we looked on the bypass, we looked downtown, we looked everywhere, and most everywhere we looked, 1 acre was $500,000. So, you know, we ultimately bought 4 acres. We now have, you mentioned that it didn't have road access. We now have road access to Maysville Road, so it is accessible.
Did you
for less
purchase
than-
that?
Yes, we did. And
So how much was
we've
that?
got less than $200,000 in the whole thing, both pieces of properties.
Okay.
So as opposed to 1 acre for $1 million on the bypass, we're off of Maysville Road for less than $200,000.
What is the estimate?
What is what?
What is the
Let
estimate?
her get through the whole thing.
To address the building building issue, we bought the building from the hospital. While after we made an agreement with the hospital to purchase the building, the hospital itself changed hands to Catholic Healthcare Initiatives. They merged with Jewish Hospital. All that went on, which meant all of their properties, whether they were intending on keeping them, selling them, whatever, they all had to be reappraised. Then they all had to have new deeds written. So in that process of almost 3 years, the building was vandalized. They took all the copper wiring out, which part of the wiring we originally intended to use. The basement flooded, which is where all the electrical services were, all the heating and air units that we planned to use, everything were underwater. Because once the electric come out, that meant the electric went off because we had sump pumps running. And it flooded. And we had, before we bought the building, before we even decided, we had engineers and architects built the building. They did plans for that building. They looked at all the, services, mechanical, electric, everything, how it would work, and evaluated all that, and, thought that would be a good idea. But after all those things were taken out, engineers went back in.
But did you look at the building before you signed on the dotted line?
That's what I just said. Yes, we had engineers and architects.
So it vandalized when it was in your possession?
No, it was vandalized in the 3-year time period that the hospital owned it. We had made an agreement with the hospital, but we did not own it.
So you could have backed out of the
So we
deal?
couldn't do anything about it.
Could you have backed out of the deal?
We could have backed out of it, but we were, the board, and I'm just speaking for the board, they can speak whatever, looked at it. We could not find that much acreage for $200,000 a year.
Was there an insurance claim made on the damage, do you know?
That would be up to the hospital.
Not our
That's
property.
not our property.
The 200 to 300 people you say come in and out of the library like today, how many of them are repeat? How many of them are new?
Some of them are repeat. We've got 1 or 2 that are in there every single day. We've got a guy that sells cats for a living. That's what he does. And he's in there checking he sells $3,000 cats.
Cats. And he's
That
using
he's
the
a breeder.
library for his business?
But he comes in and checks his email and catches up with all the cat news and,
So
whatever.
he makes $3,000 on the cat, he can't afford internet at his house?
He doesn't have internet in his house, no. And I guess he looks at that, he pays taxes, he's getting a benefit from his tax dollars.
And then another question.
So some are repeats, some aren't.
So-
But that's a good example, and he doesn't mind us using him as an example.
Walking around town, I see a lot of empty buildings downtown. I mean, they're trying to bring people back downtown. Instead of moving the library to a megaplex in a central or a location that's not convenient to the people that are probably using it now, wouldn't it be better to have satellite locations in different areas?
We do, have the satellite in Camargo
You
where
could have more personnel, and I
Yeah.
don't think you gain from that.
the liability insurance, the personnel, the cost in technology, and a lot of times people don't realize how much the cost in wiring and servers, and then if you're gonna get into the database to check stuff out, you have to have a specific SIP connection to get from the computer in one building back to the server, so it's, a secure connection, and so some of those costs are, but the library board did look at buildings in town. We looked at the old hospital, or the old high school. We looked at Monarch Mill. We looked up at Gateway Manufacturing at one time. And again, the prices of those things versus what it would cost to make it structurally sound to hold books wasn't feasible.
So, when you bought the hospital property, speculating that you would get enough money to build a new library before you had the money, is that correct?
When they bought it, there was a little over $1 million.
But that wouldn't be
So
enough
that
to build
would-
what you want.
The rest of it would have to be borrowed or received through a grant, I guess.
So is that sound business practice to go out and spend money like that without knowing that you don't have the money to complete it?
Do you know any government entity that typically builds an entire structure that they don't sell bonds or something for?
They usually sell before they build.
Extension service.
Yeah.
They've been buying whole city blocks. Cash.
Can I?
Well, he's got.
Let me ask one question.
Let's take that.
You already have a contract on the property as far as what is gonna be built there and who's gonna build it, or that still has to go through?
That has to be done by bid.
The
as far as
architects
building.
are doing that right now.
Architects are already doing, okay.
What, you said,
Back to you.
you said that the building was like 140, and I guess the access to Maysville was, I guess, 60,000. How much is raising it?
52.
Okay, how much does it cost to demolish the structure that's there?
The bids that have been let, there was one, and I don't know the numbers right off, but
Approximately.
it'll be in that
So now we're up to $300,000 for this 4 acres.
which is still a long way from.
Okay.
from being in
I'm just
our-
trying to understand.
How much to build the new library is projected? What do we need? How much more do we need to do the deal?
Numbers aren't finalized with the architect yet. They're working on plans.
Do we have a ballpark within $1 million, $500,000?
4.5.
$4.5 million to build a new library.
$1.5 million of which we have right now.
$1.5 million. So you still have $3 million to raise through taxpayer money and/or bonding capacity. Do you know how much our bonding capacity is? How much you anticipate for bonding?
Bonding is not an option.
Okay. So it will have.
Due to pending lawsuits.
Okay. So the money you're speculating will come either in the form of grant money and/or taxpayer money at this point.
It'll come out of the budget that we have.
Come out of our budget, yes.
So it's all taxes, you can't sell any bond?
Can't sell.
We can't sell bonds
I don't think
because
we
we're
can sell
currently
bonds.
under litigation. Nobody will buy a bond because of litigation.
Just because somebody asked, I am extremely hopeful that we will not be totally dependent on taxpayer money because the Friends of the Montgomery County Public Library have reorganized. We have a pending 501c3 request with the federal government. I anticipate it should be here soon because they cashed our check in April. And this community was able to well fund the Arts Center, which has no permanent funding, unlike the library. And I am hoping that with a major capital push, we can get businesses such as yours to donate generously to offset the cost to the taxpayers.
You said you had 2 reasons for raising the tax rate this year. One was increase in salaries. What was the other?
The building.
The building.
Okay. What is the increase in your employment that you're trying? How much is your total package? If you've got 10 people making $725 and they're taking them all to $775.
So I can tell you, I've got the budget with me for this year. I don't have last year's budget. Shannon
I've got
does,
it.
I've sent it to him. For salaries, and salary is the biggest portion of what we spend at the library, because we are a public service. We help with computers, we check things in and out.
But what is the increase in salaries this year then, from last year?
Shannon's got those numbers. I didn't break them.
How many employees do we have right now, full-time and part-time?
It's about 28, we've got 2 positions open. So 28 is about what we've done.
28 right now plus 2, or 28 with the
28 with those 2.
With those two. So we have 26 right now that are working for us. How many do you anticipate having at the new library that we're operating?
About the same.
About the same? Okay, what about, do you plan on keeping the other branch open or closing it?
You mean down
Camargo,
here?
the Camargo branch.
Camargo branch, we will keep open. The people in that area really like it, and we've heard a lot from them that they don't want to see it go.
Do you plan on keeping the bookmobile going, or you want to?
No, the bookmobile goes all over the county, so it serves people that aren't able to actually get into the building.
You gonna keep this building or sell it?
And we're gonna sell it, which will be additional funds, that questions come up, so we will be selling.
Do you have any speculation numbers on what that building will bring in its current condition?
We don't. We've had a couple people that have actually looked at the building that are interested in the building, but it has to be all coupled with a law.
You say half your expenditures for your budget is due to labor,
It's a little over half, but
a little over half. Are employees of the library, and I don't understand all this, are employees of the library, are they covering state pension, federal pension, how's it?
only the people that are classified as full-time, according to the state, are covered by pension.
How many do you
So
have?
that's, we have positions for 7 full-time people that work 35 hours or more, their salary, so, a lot of times it's more.
You want-
And we have an additional number of people that work 25 to 30 hours, and according to state guidelines, those people are required to get retirement too.
And what are those salary ranges for full-time people?
For the full-time people?
Yes.
I don't have the ranges right now.
Do you have a guesstimation?
Shannon, you got
I
that?
think you.
Did you ask?
He asked the
Does-
salary ranges for full-time people.
Well, I was going to answer your first question because I'm slow.
Oh.
You wanted to know the 13, 14, and 1450, the 1415 the difference
know the difference in the salary.
in salary. In 13-14, the salary was full-time 208.6 and part-time was 181.7. And in 2014-15, is that what you're asking for?
15, 16, this
Oh,
year.
I'm sorry.
And I've got 15, 16.
Labor is 67% of the tax
Yes.
revenue, but
67%.
67% is what the library spends. They spend $600 and some thousand dollars a year on labor, and they spend about $50,000 a year on books.
It's a lot of money.
Well, and it's not just books. I mean, you know, books are one of those things that we do have a lot of books checked out, but we are into other technology as well. You know,
Your
online services, download ebooks, audiobooks, those kinds of things that are in there. So the materials budget, which includes those things, is almost 12%.
So, sorry, Rach, what I said to you before. Full-time in 2014-15 was 216. And in 2015-16, it's 2015-5, so it's down $500.
Talking about operating per year.
That's salary full-time for a year,
It's how much
200.
That's not good.
divided over? Well, I'm just trying to find
No,
a range.
well, I asked specific, you want salary?
The salary is what he asked.
Okay, salary. 216 to 215.5 is full-time, 189.5 for part-time in last year, and 244 in part-time this year, so
And
it's
those
up,
part-time positions that went up.
it's
due-
up
yeah.
$60,000.
30%.
Yeah.
Pretty good increase.
I think that's what a lot of people here are really worried about. I love libraries. I love to read. You know, I get all my information mostly electronic now, so I don't go to libraries like I used to. I love bookstores. Most people are concerned about continued rising of the cost. It's not just, you know, the 4% that you like to have here or the 10%. You know, at the first of the year, the utility companies raised 15% just on your meter. You know, there's not 50, yeah, but I think it was 15% on your meter just to have one. You've got rises in healthcare costs, deductibles, pharmaceuticals, beef. I mean, everything, it's just a pile-on effect. And you know, it gets to be unsustainable. I mean, the employees that work for the library, like you say, are part of the state retirement system, right?
Well, they're the county
Some of
retirement
them,
system.
yeah.
Some of them, the
It's
seven
less than
people.
half the people that work there. but-
You know, they have serious problems themselves. You know, we've got some big problems to face here in the next few years. And you know, like I say, I would just, if it was great times, we were making hand over fist, it'd be okay to just say, okay, take it 4%. But it's just a piling on effect. That's what we're all worried about, you know. And if costs keep rising every year, it's just gonna keep getting tougher and tougher.
Yeah, part of the problem is I'm hard pressed to find anything that went up 10% year to year.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Healthcare.
Other than, well, yeah, healthcare went up 186% year to year. So that's a big issue. And part of the issue is everybody is stretched, and we're being stretched even further. About the only relief we had in the past 12 months is gasoline. For now.
And that's going to cause another problem, because as your gasoline taxes drop, guess what the revenue of the state of Kentucky does?
Goes down.
It goes down too, so you're going to have further budget cuts, you know. It's like we're going to slip into some depreciation, and that's going to be hard on everything, budgets, really.
So are there questions in there?
I think we ought to keep the money in the reserve just for the rainy day fund.
This young man here didn't have a chance to speak yet.
I want to go out there and speak.
You come right on.
I'm going to ask that, I just think I've been quiet, haven't interrupted nobody, so
I'm
I
sorry.
appreciate
You
the
speak
attention
up.
span. Yeah, I will. I want to know how many people in this room think the library is an important key to our community. I would hope that everybody would think that. I feel like the library has an identity problem with some in the community. Many think the library doesn't have a role anymore in our community. They think that it's non-essential. And that really is an uneducated thought. The library makes possible the growth, personal development, creative accomplishment that most of us would think to be necessary to make it in life and be successful. Many people in this community utilize our library in order to achieve them things. homeschool kids, college students, rich, middle class, poor, they all use the library. It's proven. Major universities across the country still back public libraries. 64% of Americans have been in a library in the last 12 months, according to college research by major universities. They're very, very important to communities.
Question here.
Let me finish speaking, please.
Let him say what
They also contribute to employment, because my mother herself, when she first went to Mount Sterling, had to go to the library to type up her resume to find a job. Now she's the property manager of the apartments behind Walmart. Now she has her own internet, but she still goes to the library. Expanding services like a library is only expands the education and growth of our community. For anyone to want to slow down the process of growth of individuals or the growth of our library is really, in my opinion, selfish in a lot of ways. Because there are so many other things concerning government that you can pick on that our government wastes money on. I don't feel like a library should be something that we should be picking on. Period. We talk about taxes. Let's break down the overall taxes in Montgomery County real quick. Because the group, the Montgomery County Citizens for Fair Taxation, and I don't know how many of those members are in here today, but you go on social media and you give people the impression that we're being taxed to death. You made a post the other day that you compared our local government to butchers, to people who want to constantly milk us. That is just not true in Montgomery County. It may be true on a federal level. It may be true on a state level. But it's not true in our local community. And numbers prove that. Numbers do not lie. If you own a house in Montgomery County that's worth $128,000, in 2005, the tax rate was 86.90, which means you paid $1,112.32.
On how much of a house?
$128,000.
That
That is the average household.
Let him talk.
That is the average household in Montgomery County's value.
County or city?
$128,000.
County or city?
County.
Okay.
Well, let's just use that base value of $128,000. Okay. You paid $1,112.32 in 2005. In 2014, the rate's 102. You paid $1,305.60. The increase over 9 years was $193.28. That's it. Some people say that's a lot of money. No, it's not a lot of money. And the question on Facebook by Mr. Dennison has been, how many of y'all's income has increased 10% or double or triple over the last 10 years? I would think that a majority of the community's income has rose well over $193 over the last 9 years.
Do you have a job?
Yes, I have a job.
Has your income rose?
Okay, let him
My
talk,
income has
and
rose
then you can
about
talk, please.
$15,000 over the last 10 years, yes. As far as the city goes, you had city taxes. I'm not even going to bring it up because this is really a county issue, but in the city of Mount Sterling, in 1996, the tax rate was 23.8. In 2015, it's 25.6, an increase of only 1.8 in 19 years. How are you being taxed to death?
What was that again? What were those for?
In 1996, the tax rate in Mount Sterling was 23.8.
That's the city.
That's
not
the
the county.
yes, that's a city.
Yeah.
I'm just giving you an example of the claim that we're being taxed to death as a
County,
community.
the
And
county
we're
tax.
not.
The county tax.
Okay, well, I understand that, Shane. It's a county tax. The county tax overall as a whole has only rose $193 over 9 years.
What percent is that?
Does it matter what percent that is?
Absolutely.
You have to have some common sense, man. People want improvement in their community. They want roads repaved. They want guardrails put up, signs put up. They want the expansion of educational services. They want the school system to succeed and be successful, but nobody wants to pay for it.
We want it done at a reasonable cost.
I think it's
I'm offended.
Okay.
I'm offended that you think that someone that wants to control their government is uneducated. I'm offended.
I don't think
that you think
that,
that someone who wants to watch their government entity spend my tax money is uneducated.
I
You're
would think,
offended, sir.
I would think that, let me finish, please. So the library tax. This has been portrayed on social media by this group as being a destructive increase that could cost someone their home. This increase, if you own a home valued at $128,000, under the current rate of 6.4, you pay $81.92 as your portion to the library. Under the new rate, you'll pay $89.60, an increase of $7.68. $7.68 to expand the library, provide more educational services to the community? Are you kidding me? And you want to slow that down over $7.68? That is pathetic. It is selfish. It really is. It's selfish. Because people need that library. Education is so important. School systems aren't doing what they used to do back in the day, maybe when you was in school, or when you was in school. Education has changed. As a matter of fact, I can dedicate my time in the library about 5 hours a day, every day of the week. And I can come out of that library more educated than the person who pays to go to college and spends 4 years at a major university.
I can do that on my phone.
Nobody's
No, you
arguing.
can't, actually you can't do that on your
Yes,
phone.
I can.
Because the library is held to informational standards.
Last time I went to
They're
the
held to
library
things that you can't
to check
find
out a
on the
book,
internet.
A Mark Twain book, they didn't have it. I had to go online and Amazon and buy it.
Oh.
Well, you know, I sit here and listen to all this, and this back and forth, back and forth. Let me explain something here. I've lived in this county all my life. I started working here when I was 14 years old. I've paid taxes ever since I was 14 years old. Now, I've been fortunate in this the most because I went to Toyota and worked. Then I paid a whole hell of a lot of taxes. Now I'm on a fixed income. Don't tell me I go down the road and throw $7 out my window, because I don't. My insurance is paid 70% by Toyota Retirement Fund, yet I pay over $400 a month for my insurance. So I appreciate everybody's problems here, but is there not some way that we don't have to spend $4.5 million to get a new library when I go to this one and I don't see 30 people in it? And the most people I see are sitting at the computers using free internet. I tried it myself and couldn't get to do squat. But the library people were awful happy to help, and I appreciate that. The thing of it is, don't act like I made $15,000 I'll tell you, I made over $100,000 all those years at Toyota, and I paid my damn welfare share.
Guys, ask a question.
I'm just saying that.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying, but I'm just having my little
Well,
say
I
here.
understand that. I'm just saying that to want to stop the expansion of educational services over a, quote, historical tax increase that is really amount to just a few dollars.
Nobody's
Per
stopping
unit.
it.
Nobody wants to stop it. This isn't what this is about.
You're changing the whole-
I disagree with that. I
Well,
disagree
you're
with
wrong.
that.
You can't.
Because of your language on Facebook and because of the group's language on Facebook, I strongly disagree with that.
Well, I'm not a member of his group, I'm
Okay.
my own member. But you're wrong.
No.
Nobody wants to change the education system. We support the school system,
We
I
love the
support the
library.
library. But I don't think we need a big brick and mortar building for a system of library that's changing in nature, just like newspapers. Nobody reads newspapers like they used to, because you read them online. That's Mr. Marshall there.
Well, the
I mean,
fact is, people still use the
the
library.
libraries, I can go home, I can read every newspaper in the country on my computer.
Can I ask a question to the board?
You have to subscribe.
Is there,
Some of them
is
do,
there
some of them
any,
don't.
Some of them after 60 days,
Is there any-
you have to subscribe.
Back to the court.
is there any way we can actually get a cheaper building? I mean, build something more, maybe, renovate something.
Build on, or add some computers here in this nice building for people to use the computers.
Until we just see for another year or two to see, I know costs may continue to rise, and probably will, but, if we can get it done a little cheaper or find something, more affordable.
Okay, I am not a frequent flyer of the library, but my daughter and my two granddaughters are. So explain to me, why do we need a bigger building?
The things that are in the building that right now we have to tell people no. Most other libraries have a place if a group of students are working on a collaborative project, you know, they've been assigned, they've got to do something together, they can go in a quiet room and do that. We don't have that. We do open our community room now for some quiet hours, but doing story hour and talk time and things like that every week, our one meeting room is limited.
Okay,
I mean, that's one example.
okay.
Other examples, we are maxed out on electric down there right now. We have 2 service panels completely full.
Can you add a service panel?
We could add a service panel, but there's nowhere else to put a computer in. I mean, if you've been in there, you got, there's literally nowhere else to put another computer in that building. We have tried to find ways to deal, and you know, and that gets back to then somebody wants Mark Twain, and we've had to take Mark Twain off the shelf because we've had to make room for more computers and technology, which is what people are looking for. So
You're willing to spend millions of dollars on an internet cafe when we have free Wi-Fi at our parks now?
but
Okay,
Internet
McDonald's
Cafe
and-
doesn't supply most of the time a computer. And we have people
Can we
come
check
in
them
and
out?
use the
Can we buy some
computers.
$100 Kindles or $50 computers and allow people to check them out overnight? And go and access the Wi-Fi around town, around the county that's free? I mean, are there better ideas than dumping $4.5 million in a
Why
big
didn't the school
building
do
to
that?
put computers in
Why
the
didn't the school do
internet?
that if it's such a bright idea?
Did they try that
They
with
did.
Google Chrome?
Well, the school's got the Chromebooks.
Maybe the
And
library
we
needs
see a
to
lot of
step
those
up.
kids in there on their
Why, if the
Chromebooks.
school's
because
doing
they
it-
Okay, let me ask you this.
That
When
school's
you
got
were
library,
in
why do we need libraries?
When you were in
How many
a
libraries do
3-year
we have in schools?
contract with the
Every one of them's got
hospital,
library.
I believe they're
and you
closed
said
at
that it did
3:30.
not flood at that, it flooded during that 3-year period, who was representing the hospital and who was representing the library during the transaction?
Well,
We had-
the library owned the library did not own the building, so we
No,
didn't know.
I mean, were there commercial real estate agents involved?
There were
Okay.
libraries.
We just laying there
So,
dormant.
okay, so when you were in that 3-year contract and the basement flooded, the building got vandalized, so there was, did you go to the hospital and ask for compensation because you knew you were gonna have to demolish the building? Did you ask for a reduction in the cost?
The cost was already at a reduction. We took the building as is. And
But at
was
that
our
point,
plan
it was
as
usable.
is.
At that point, it was usable.
That as is as is. I mean, there's not.
As
you can't go
is,
back.
it was usable and you were not planning on demolishing it, so, and I guess maybe I'm just going at this in a totally different direction. I don't know, maybe so there was no deduction in the contract price when it was vandalized and flooded, correct? No.
It did, yeah, from
Yeah,
the
it was
original, it was
originally
175. It started out 200, it got down to 175 after we'd spent months.
Okay, so we can take that into consideration,
And
okay.
that's why we took the as-is building.
When
So you
it was
took- so you took
flooded,
$30,000
when it was flooded, did the hospital get the insurance money for the damages?
We're not the
Why
insurance.
didn't you all get that?
We did not.
We didn't own the building.
No, but your contract probably didn't
We
state
didn't have a
that you were.
contract.
Oh, so you didn't have a contract?
We had an
We
agreement.
had an agreement.
You had an
and we was gonna
agreement,
buy
okay.
a certain amount of money.
Gotcha.
They wouldn't sign it because of all the turmoil they were going through.
Okay.
Okay. So we get on track. I don't want to tell the library what building to build. I don't want to tell the library anything other than I absolutely agree on educational advancement, but I'm not sure that all the decisions that are made for the choices that are made in the library are for educational advancement. One example is giving out movies. I don't think that's an educational advancement. So part of our problem is the proliferation, the broadening of the scope of the library, and the fact that the only thing that people in Montgomery County, some people in Montgomery County, want to do is let's be fiscally responsible. If you're asking the taxpayers to increase their increase, and I don't buy into your $7 because that's a bunch of malarkey. If everybody was allowed to raise 10%, it'd be a far cry from $7. So you have to control it where you control it. So I let you speak, sir. I let you speak, okay? So what I would like to see is if you really think this is necessary, if you really think Montgomery County is behind it, then put it on the ballot and let the people decide for the first time since 1980 whether the increase is what Montgomery County taxpayers want to do.
Can I come up?
Due to the KRS, that wouldn't be a valid vote.
Yes, it is.
Let me ask it this way, if you were allowed to put it on the ballot, if you were allowed to put it on the ballot, if our library board was allowed to put this tax increase on the ballot, would you as a board elect to do that?
I'm not on board, don't ask me.
If it's over percent, can we petition to put it on the ballot?
If it's more than 4% over compensating.
We
We
can,
can.
This
petition,
year, it was
put it on
John's
the ballot.
CPA, he ran the numbers, what was it over compensating this year, John? It was,
2.94.
So if it's
So-
over 4%, I will personally start the petition to put it on the ballot.
over
It is-
4% compensating,
It
is what
is.
the law says.
It is. The
And
compensating
it's
is.
not 4% over compensating, it's.
You all, have you all done the rate calculations, or are you taking someone else's word on these numbers being correct?
All the rate calculations are performed at the Department of Libraries and Archives.
Who does statute say that is responsible for setting the rates and calculating the rates?
the library.
Who's responsible?
The library.
Which board is
We give
responsible for the
recommendations.
rates?
We're responsible for selecting the rate, but we're not responsible for calculating. And there is
Yes.
nobody in this county
Yes, you are.
that can calculate that rate.
Yes, you are.
Well,
There's a
I disagree
statute.
with you. That's
May I come up and
another-
speak now?
When our opportunity is to let the community speak, it wasn't for
Is
us
there-
to speak anyway.
Let me say one thing about this vote. I was around in 1980 and they came around with a petition to vote. Barney, sign this petition. I said I'll be glad to because I don't think we need the library tax, and I signed a petition. Next thing I know, well, we had over 51% of legal voters' signatures on a petition, so it's passed.
Yeah.
We never got to vote. Now, they threw a whole lot of tea into Boston Harbor over not getting to vote. We had a whole revolution in this country because we didn't get a vote. I just want to be treated like I'm a human being and that you just don't run over top of me. Worked hard all my life for everything I've got.
I think
And
if the library wanted to exercise its right to increase the rate as much as it's asking, I don't think it's unreasonable to put it on the ballot for every taxpayer to vote on. And it is legal according to the Attorney General opinion letter that we have the document for, and it was done in
Campbell County.
Campbell County.
By their library board.
By their library board. So all I'm asking is, look, I'm not gonna tell you what to build, okay? What I wanna do is voice my opinion as to whether I want to pay that much. And it would be nice, and I'll tell you one thing, it's much more cooperative now in talking to the library board in a meeting than it was during this time where there was a lot of pushing and shoving and emotion. And I appreciate that. But I think it needs to be put before the county of Montgomery and all their taxpayers.
Well, does anyone know how you would start the procedure?
I've got all.
Yes,
I'll
we've got
abide
it.
with me after
To
the
abolish all taxing districts and return the taxing authority to your local government, who we can hold accountable for the tax increase.
There is a procedure.
We need to do that. That's what
Yes.
we need to concentrate on, is just abolish all taxing districts.
And reset it, restart it.
Amen to that. Taxation without representation sucks.
These taxing districts are little entities that take care of themselves, and we need the.
Well, I'm sure if somebody wanted to go talk to John about it, you could talk to John, he would be our representative.
At this.
You know, there's lots of lanes, but it's got to be a give and take from both sides.
Well, and it's, it's set up that the library board is supposed to be your representative. They're appointed by the fiscal board.
No.
Are
They're
from-
appointed by Frankfurt. They're selected, not elected.
Someone from the fiscal court, the judge appoints them at signs
So
off
the
on
judge
letter saying,
chooses
"I have
names and sends them to
appointed."
Frankfurt. Frankfurt selects, not elects.
No, it's the other way around.
It's the other way
We
around.
Send the letter to Frankfurt
The
first, and then
library,
Frankfurt sends it to the
the
judge.
library entity in Frankfurt sends the names, and he gets to
Yes.
pick from one of the names.
The judge picks from those
Right.
names.
Can you
But
tell
he
us
has no control over it.
What can the judge do after that, though? How is the judge accountable? How is our Judge Exec Wallace Johnson accountable?
He's not.
To the library.
He's not.
The library board is your accountable representative.
And we're asking.
Until you're accountable to the taxpayers.
But the state is the one to determine how that works.
All we're asking for is with local people involved,
We're
just
following the
asking-
rules that-
We're just asking with local people involved, because we think that's the way to do it, is we think that this should be put before a vote. And I'm okay with that. If the taxpayers of this county decides, yes, 10%, heck, let's make it 20.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that because the majority of people have decided to do that. But right now, what it is it's 6 or 7 individuals that are selected from a name list by the fiscal court. The fiscal court wipes its hands of the process.
And we have people in town that are trying to run for the library board and can't even be acknowledged, you know, I mean, it's the same people being put back on the board. I mean, there's not run for it, but other people that are wanting a seat on the board that are being ignored right now.
There is a board member that will be reappointed in February, so we
Educated
actually have an
doctors,
application
business
process.
owners.
If somebody is
Well,
interested,
Let's just
come
do,
down and ask for the application, and I'll give you the application.
So what's the
I hate to be-
process? I mean,
What?
You have to apply to be on a board that represents.
You have to know that you're interested first.
We have to know that you're interested, and then secondly, they do, since they are representing the entire county, the library board looks at, you know, are we representing all demographics? We don't want all females or all males. Are we representing all areas of the county? You know, is there somebody on there that's been from Jeffersonville or the north side of the county? You know, so they wanna make sure, so that's part of that application process, is to look to make sure there are representatives in the counties.
So the library
represented by
board
the
pretty much
citizens.
can wean out anybody they don't want on the board, is that what you're saying?
We
If
have-
it came
We
down
have
to.
never had a plethora of people
Yes.
beating on the doors and said, I gotta be on this board. We go out and have to search for people.
I hate to be a broken record, but I want to repeat.
We will, at the next board meeting,
Okay.
we're going to discuss
Okay.
whether we want to put our tax rate on the ballot.
Okay.
Well,
Thank you.
May I approach the board now and speak?
you got,
Shannon, let me say one thing. I can't even sell a home in Mount Sterling anymore and tell these people that your taxes are gonna be lower in Mount Sterling than they are in Lexington.
That's right.
And I mean, look what Lexington has to offer versus what Mount Sterling. I can't even do that now. And I mean, and I know it's not your all's fault, because I know, I look at my school tax bill and it's like heaven to Betsy, what's going on?
I think it's cheaper in Winchester and Clark County up there.
And Lexington.
Yes.
But now the library tax rate isn't. The library tax rate is higher. The counties around us in our area that are less in library tax rate than us are Nicholas, Mason, Madison, and Powell. Lewis, Harrison, Park, Fleming, Bourbon, Menifee, Morgan, Bath, Justin, Brown, and Estville are all the way above us.
That was
in their
using
tax
their
rate for the
rates-
libraries.
That was using their rates from 2 years ago and our rate, our current rate.
And I've got that if you want to.
But what else but what does Powell County and Menifee County and all those other counties, they're more similar to us than Lexington. I mean, I had it told to me one time that if you want to be successful, you've got to go to Lexington. All successful people go to Lexington. Well, I don't necessarily agree with that. But we're always in Mount Sterling, always trying to bring people into the county to grow. We don't have anything to offer them. And we don't have any incentives. We don't have the businesses. We don't have the entertainment to keep the young people here. And like I said, and then there's one more thing. I can't even tell them now when they buy a house that your taxes are going to be lower in Mount Sterling than they are in Lexington.
I'm not here today to suggest how the library board manages our library. I'm not here to suggest that the library has no role in our community. I'm here to remind you that the voters of our county did not get to elect you, the library board members, despite this board having been given the power to levy a tax. I'm here to remind you of the phrase, the power to tax is the power to destroy. Taxes hurt our community. And despite the claims that it's only $6 per year, you are not the only agency in town increasing taxes. All of these claims of only $6 add up. And they literally nickel and dime our county to death. This board's tax rate has continued to climb year after year. Your board is now asking someone who paid $33 a decade ago, that's 10 years ago, in 2005, a homeowner paid $33 for our library, to fund the library. Today, you're asking them to pay $89. I'll remind you that no one in this room has seen the same rate of increase in their income over the same period of time. The U.S. Census Bureau estimates median household income was $34,341 in 2003 and $37,312 in 2014. household income in Montgomery County has increased only 8.6% over that 11-year period, 8.6%. While library tax rates have increased a whopping 191% over the same period. Total revenue for the library has increased even more. It's my belief, and the belief of others in the room here today, that government should not expand faster than the people who fund it. The reason that most taxing entities are elected is because they're supposed to get feedback from voters. Taxing entities have the responsibility to listen to the public every day, where the voters make their voices heard on election day, to ensure that the services provided and the required tax revenue for those services match what voters desire. The residents of Montgomery County deserve to have input on this increase beyond a simple hearing. And without electoral accountability, this amounts to nothing more than a show trial. On behalf of many taxpayers in this county, I ask that you respect us by putting the proposed tax increase on the ballot. Based on the opinion of the Attorney General of Kentucky, that number 82-485, that's OAG 82-485, I have a copy to leave with you today. In 2012, the Campbell County Library Board placed their increased proposal on the ballot using the same legal precedent. If the board has any questions about this procedure, I recommend contacting your attorney, Jeff Mando, who also represents the Campbell County Library Board. If you decide that you do not want to willingly provide that voice to Montgomery County residents, we are prepared to file a recall petition with the county clerk within the time allotted to do so. We all know that the board intends to take the rate that you have publicly advertised. Therefore, the board only has one decision to make today. Will you place your proposed tax increase on the ballot for voters to decide, or will the voters place it on the ballot for you? Thank you.
Can I just respond to that right here? Really quick. I'm from Lexington. I come here 13 years ago, opened up a business here. Very successful business so far. Raised my family here. The difference between communities like Lexington, they may have more visually, more shopping, more things to do, but they are a complete financial disaster. My family is on city council in Lexington. It's in horrible shape. So horrible, it's like crazy. They just raised school taxes again just a couple of days ago. The mayor wants to borrow $40 million to remodel the old courthouse when they're in financial crisis. Police department, horrible.
Whoa.
His brother's the chief.
My brother's the chief over there. Don't tell me they're horrible.
I'm sorry. Well, I'm from there. I know how horrible they've been.
That's one of the best police departments in the country. And the government will tell you.
I believe that our local police department here is probably one of the best in the state. So when you look at the community as a whole, everything plays an important role. You have parks and recreation, you have the school system, you have the library, you have city council of Mount Sterling, you have the fiscal court of Montgomery County. And all these things are a very nice looking pie right now because overall, they're handled more responsibly than surrounding communities as a whole. And we want to stay that way. And so we've been that way. Keep in mind your state's in. But I understand that. But we've been in a responsible mode for quite some time in a state that's in a very irresponsible mode, and in surrounding counties who are very irresponsible, and in a nation that's $19 trillion in debt. Sometimes you have to put trust in the people that are running things. We let the media and the thought of tax increase. I am not a tax fan, I promise. I am a very, very firm believer in flat tax, okay? Abolishing the IRS. I promise you, I'm so anti-tax. But you can't be anti-common sense at the same time. And I understand people are wanting to put it on the ballot and let people vote and everything else. But overall, if we put every tax situation on the ballot, I promise you we wouldn't have anything because there's so many people in the community who are so anti-tax they would never vote for a tax increase. And they wouldn't take the time to educate themselves about the situation to make an honest vote on a tax increase.
You make a lot of assumptions.
You
No,
got
I make a lot of
You have
assumptions.
no
You buy
facts.
insurance here in
There was a
town?
guy here at the last board meeting, he said, facts are opinion. You know, a lot of opinions, the same as other facts, but they're not, sir.
Well, I'll tell you what the fact is.
Yeah.
All right, let's.
Under the new rate
It's-
of 7.0, if you own a home worth $128,000, you're only paying $7 and something cents a month, a year
Yeah,
more.
good, okay. you
That's a
talk
fact.
now.
This year,
Mike,
what
you
about
talk.
the following?
Rick and talk, and then it's 2 o'clock,
Let me
fiscal
talk.
court staring at us,
Thank you.
so.
I appreciate it. I put together something here. One of the things I want to mention though, that force is the perfect example of being achieved. I apologize to the board. I know last time I got angry and I'm upset again there. Some people say some things that they really shouldn't be saying. They make assumptions about people that they shouldn't assume. I don't think anybody in this room has bad intentions against the library. I don't think anybody, I think most people want to promote the library. But what I was going to say is force is the perfect example of selfishness. We should not have force. I put together something short that I wanted to read to everybody. My name is Rick Gunnarsson. My name is Rick Gunnarsson, and I own Kentucky Wi-Fi. We're a local provider, internet provider here in Mount Sterling, and I'm not a professional speaker, obviously. Okay? I'm not here to represent myself, or just myself. I'm here to represent our friends and neighbors in Montgomery County who could not attend this meeting because they're out working, trying to make ends meet. And I meet them every day. Tough times are in America. Just look at the stock report today. Yeah, it's coming back a little bit, but the prognosis of the stock market is not good, and the stock market is the heartbeat of America. It shows how we are doing economically. In these past 10 years, we're not doing good economically. I see these people that are, our friends and neighbors struggling to hold families together. I ask them about economic issues, and they say things are dismal. I watch this family are broken apart, losing their homes, and ended up separated or placed in a poverty situation. I see these people every day, and it makes me sick. No taxes will not hurt everyone. They won't hurt the board. They won't hurt me. Yeah, it stinks a little bit, but we can get by. But I'm watching these people, some of my customers. My incentive is just that. I want to see my customers grow and prosper. I want to see them be able to have the internet and pay their bills. But they can't do that when they're downtrodden with high taxes. And that's what we're talking about. We're at a real problem with these taxes. Okay, because this represents these people I'm talking about, I extrapolated a short article in the U.S. News and Study and the Brookings Institute. It centers around the past decade, how the economy has declined during that time. The same time frame, 10 years, where the library has chosen to increase its income by double. If you want the links to the following facts, please contact me, I'll give them to you. Okay, everybody probably knows this, but I just want to underscore what this U.S. News report says. We're feeling the pinch. Pew Research Center confirms that Americans are struggling financially even after the official end of the Great Recession. The last decade saw lower income, shrinking net worth, and a smaller middle class. Incomes are lower. The average American's income has declined by 5%. We're talking about the same 10 years. Net worth has shrunk. This decade was harsher on households' net worth. Median income fell by 28%. Net worth, which serves as an emergency fund in case of a job loss or savings account to pay for big life expenses such as retirement, this is what he's talking about, is a key indicator of financial security. Middle class is smaller. Pew calculates that 51% of adults are now middle income. In 1971, the figure was 61%. In other words, the middle class has shrunk. People say it's hard to maintain middle class standards. Pew found that 85% of respondents who consider themselves middle class believe it has grown more difficult to maintain the same standard of living over the last decade. This is what these people are telling me when I go to fix their internet or help them on their computers. This is what they're telling me. The recession still lingers. While economists declare the Great Recession to be over 3 years ago, Pew reports that middle-class Americans are still coming back. 6 in 10 report cutting back spending over the last year, while just over half said they were doing the same in 2008. People say it's harder to get ahead. Most middle class respondents say it's harder to get ahead than it was 10 years ago, and I believe it's true. And this belief is shared across all demographic groups. People struggle to pay their bills. Pew finds that 3 in 10 Americans report trouble paying their bills, and 2 in 10 struggle to get or pay for medical care for themselves or a family member. About 60% they face difficulty affording their housing expenses. Young people are more likely to feel downtrodden. About 1 in 4 middle-class adults under age 30 say they feel downwardly mobile compared to the way that they were raised. And this is true. I see around these young people, they're trying to have young families with babies, and they're dependent on government, or they're dependent on their families to help them out. They're not able to make it, even though both of them are working. Both parents are working as hard as they possibly can. So the past decade was uniquely negative. Pew found that between 2000 and 2010, and this is old, I think it's gotten worse since 2010, but the mean family income fell for every income quintile. That has never been true for previous decades. Dating back to 1950, the lowest earning quintile fared the worst. Brookings Institute says the Hamilton Project policy paper provided dozens of facts on struggling lower middle class families. This is why we went from middle class, now we're talking about lower income middle class. Food insecurity, the low return of work for struggling lower middle class families who tax and transfer benefits as their earnings increase. These facts highlight the critical role of federal tax and transfer programs and income support in families struggling to make up the poverty. Many families in America struggling lower than income, defined to include those between 100 and 250% of federal poverty level, at roughly between $15,000 and $60,000, depending on family size. And they live in economically precarious situations. These are the people I'm seeing. Though not officially poor, these families experience limited economic security. One major setback in income could push them into poverty. And when we're talking about major setbacks, the minor ones all add up. More than half of the families in the United States earn $60,000 or less per year. Nearly half of the families in the United States live below the 250% of poverty. Struggling lower middle class income families are almost equally headed by single parents and married couples. Nearly 1 out of 2 families in the struggling middle class is headed by an adult who has attended college. So we're talking about the shrinking of the middle class. Yes. Okay, I'm wrapping up. All right, wrapping up. Nearly 1/3 of struggling lower middle class families rely on income support from the government program. A variety of government tax and transfer programs augment the resources available to these people. The phase out of the transfer program, however, makes it difficult for these families to work into a more stable economic life. What we're saying is government is shrinking, they're not able to pay off this stuff, and what's happening is the bills all add up. And if you tax these homes, or if you tax property at a higher rate, what will happen is their rents go up if they're renting. It doesn't just happen in a vacuum. A low-income single parent can face a marginal tax rate as high as 95%. The highest marginal tax rate tends to fall in the struggling lower middle class. In other words, taxes are not good. I leave you with this. As a library, if your intentions are to help people, then shouldn't you understand that your actions may be in disagreement with that goal? I'm reminded that the old saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Let's make sure we're not on that road. That's what I've got to say.
What's that? Can't hear you.
And it's an exorbitant salary. Zero.
By KRS, they're not allowed to get any money. They can't receive anything. If the library will pay
you ever thought about just selling that property, what you got?
The board has considered that multiple times, but as we're staring at a building that's falling apart around us and moms of children wishing that we could do more programs and students that are trying to take online classes and we don't have enough computers to offer to them.
The garden plot down there, was the library on it?
The what?
The
No.
garden plot?
No, it belongs to the church. In fact, we don't even own all the parking lot. Half of our parking lot belongs to the other church. So we have no room to expand there.